Story 1. Am I the a-hole for banning my father-in-law's parents from ever seeing our children again? I, 33 female, found out about a week before Christmas that my father-in-law's parents diddled him, that's how he put it, and his older brother when they were kids. It was mentioned super casually as I was driving him home from a doctor appointment that requires a mild anesthetic, so I tried to keep that in mind. But everything we had been talking about beforehand was fairly normal, albeit a little gushier than usual, such as telling me how thankful he is for me and my family and whatnot. Anyways, I brought it up to my husband that night, and it was really upsetting for him. He said he had suspected because his grandparents always creeped him out, and he wasn't allowed to be around them alone. I told him that we cannot allow our children, 9 female, 3 male, 1 female, around them ever again. He pushed back at first and explained how much upset that would cause, and I said, "Too damn bad. This should have happened a lot time ago." He tried to make all these points of, "They're old. It happened so long ago. We don't even know what happened. Our kids don't need to be alone with them." And then I hit him with, "If we don't do this, then we are normalizing it further. Because someday, our children will find out, and whatever decisions we make around it will be the example they live by." He agreed, and apologized, and immediately acknowledged that it's a scary decision to make because it's going to cause a ripple. We talked to my mother-in-law and asked her if she knew anything about it. She immediately turned around, walked into the kitchen, told us to take a seat, and asked if we wanted coffee or tea. After some tears, apologies, anger, and some really amazing coffee, we learned the truth, which was horrifying, and I won't get into the details, obviously. But we found out that my father-in-law's older brother didn't die in a car accident. He took his own life. That was it for me and my husband. We pulled the plug. My mother-in-law was so upset, but said she understood and would try her best to explain to her husband. We told her that wasn't her job and that we could explain if he wanted. My husband didn't have the heart to reach out, so I did it. I know some of you may have a problem with this, but if you knew us at all, you'd understand this was the best choice. I first spoke to his father and reminded him of what he had told me about being abused, and he got really quiet on the phone to the point where I said, "Hello?" And he said, "Don't you ever tell me that I was abused," and freaked out, telling me I didn't know anything and how his parents did their best and they were just young and dumb and drank a lot and hadn't found Jesus and blah blah blah. I let him go on and on while my husband listened absolutely mortified. Once he stopped, I just cut right to the chase and said, "I can no longer allow your parents to see my children." And he hung up on me. My mother-in-law called the next morning and said they weren't coming to Christmas and how sorry she was. Around dinner time that day, my sister-in-law sent me this long text about how her and her husband wouldn't be coming over either because she felt it would upset her father even more and make him feel like she was picking us. I tried calling her right after, but she sent me to voicemail and I explained that it doesn't need to be a side-picking thing at all. So our Christmas was just my husband and our children this year. And though it was a good day, we really felt the emptiness. I kept telling him we made the right decision and that people's reactions to our boundaries don't change the boundary we've laid. But I can see on my husband's face how sad he is. And there's a tiny piece of me that feels like I'm being this crazy control freak who just blew up my husband's entire family right before Christmas. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. $5 says your sister-in-law doesn't know about the unalive. Oh, I'm certain she doesn't. When we first sat down to talk things over with my mother-in-law, she started off by asking us not to say anything, and my initial reaction was to agree. But I paused, and after looking at my husband for a second, I told her that I wasn't going to be able to promise that to her. I haven't heard from my sister-in-law much. She sent us pictures of her twin boys opening gifts and said she missed us and would reach out soon. I do feel strongly that I need to warn her. You know you are not the a-hole, but you need to tell your sister-in-law what father-in-law and mother-in-law told you. What your father-in-law is doing is abusive, and your mother-in-law and sister-in-law are joining in. They are isolating you socially to try to get you to get back in line and hand your children over to sexual abusers. so father-in-law doesn't have to think about who his parents really are. I know this might be hard for you and your husband to hear. Your husband needs to get some therapy to deal with this, because this could be a really rough road ahead. Right now is the time to document what mother-in-law and father-in-law told you, because if your husband caves in and decides to take the kids to the great-grandparents, you will need this in a custody battle, not the a-hole. Can't believe it didn't occur to him how serious this is and whether your kids may already be victims. Some families are a facade, behind which are hidden horrendous secrets. Up to a point, if you want to live your life in a state of pretend, okay. The trouble comes when some of those secrets are the existence of monsters capable of continuing to harm the innocent. At that point, the pretend is no longer okay. The pretend is aiding and abetting the monsters in their crimes, or the foreseeable risk thereof. The terrible thing is, how many still prefer the facade, even with the ongoing risks and crimes. Anything to keep up appearances. And then decades later, gee, I wonder why Jim unalived himself. Such a mystery. Sure, but the way OP handled this was not tactical. There were no plans to see father-in-law's parents in the first place when OP started asserting those rules, discussing father-in-law's trauma with him over the phone. This is a ridiculously self-centered approach to other people's trauma. The kids were not in any immediate threat or being pushed to meet those people in that moment. OP decided to take new information about father-in-law's trauma and make it about herself and her own kids, instead of approaching the issue in person and with care. The whole approach is a performative knee-jerk response that is of no help to the only actual victim in this case, who is father-in-law, not the a-hole. He committed unalive? They hadn't found Jesus? Jesus H. Christ. You don't want to put tempting morsels in their way and hope to God that they don't submit to temptation. All it takes is once. Just the grooming can change a child's behavior permanently. Story 2. Am I the a-hole here for telling my mom to back off after she criticized my parenting in front of my sons? I, 32 female, have 2 young sons, ages 6 and 4. My mom has always had strong opinions about everything I do, but since becoming a mom myself, it feels like her critiques have been relentless. She constantly comments on how I feed them, discipline them, or even what clothes I dress them in. For context, I'm financially secure and have the resources to give my boys a comfortable life, but my parenting philosophy is very different from how I was raised. I don't believe in harsh punishments, and I try to be as gentle and understanding as possible. My mom, however, thinks I'm spoiling them. She's called me soft and says I'm raising entitled brats. Last weekend, we had a family dinner at my house. My 4-year-old had a tantrum because he didn't want to eat what I made. Instead of escalating the situation, I calmed him down and offered an alternative, which eventually worked. My mom, however, loudly berated me in front of everyone, saying I was failing as a mother and letting my kids walk all over me. I got into a heated argument with her. I told her that if she couldn't respect how I choose to raise my children, I wouldn't tolerate her constant criticism. The room went silent. She stormed out shortly after, and now my family is divided. Some say I should have just let it go to avoid conflict. Others think I was justified in standing up for myself. Now, my mom is telling everyone that I embarrassed her and made her feel unwelcome in my home. I feel bad because I don't want to deprive my boys of a relationship with their grandmother, but I also feel like her behavior was unacceptable. Am I the a-hole here? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole, and who needs a grandma like this? My grandparents were my safe space, and there is no way they would have pulled this crap. Exactly. My grandparents are nothing like my parents. They are the most loving and supporting people I know. I'm a grandmother, and I keep my opinion to myself, unless I'm asked. Not the a-hole. I'm the exact same way. There have been exactly 2 times I've interjected into my daughter's marriage or raising her kids. The first was shortly after my first grandson was born, and Dad decided that rather than being a husband or father, he would game for about 15 hours a day, sleep until 11 a.m., then get back on his game. I only said to her his behavior was concerning, and as a gamer myself, I understood the draw, but when he's doing nothing to help her or the baby, it made me worry, and maybe they should have open communication and dialogue to come up with a solution that worked for them both. He turned out to be an amazing daddy in the end, but he was young and didn't know exactly how to transition from young 20-yo to husband and father. The second, I went a little more intense. She would leave my grandson in the bath alone from 1 hour on to do household things, i.e. cook dinner, and I went in hard to tell her how insane this was and sent her article after article describing the statistics and how unsafe this was and how humans can actually drown in something as small as an inch of water. Exact measurements may be off, but it's so much less than what PPL think. I regret neither, and honestly think delivery of messages makes the largest impact. Choose the battle people, not the a-hole. She completely overstepped. It's understandable that she has opinions, but she has no right to verbally attack you like that, especially in front of your sons. They need to see that their mom won't be disrespected. It's good that you're setting boundaries even if it causes family tension. Not the a-hole. You were fed up with her constant criticism, so it was okay to talk back at your mother. Don't let the family guilt trip you. I'm really fed up with her always criticizing me. I just could not hold back anymore. The fact that she criticized you, in your home, in front of others, shows she does not respect you. She got what she deserved. If she wants to discuss her observations of your parenting style, then that should be a private conversation and not a public attack. Not the a-hole. Your mom sounds like she's auditioning for the role of director of parenting critiques. You're doing what works for your kids, and that's what matters. Offering your son an alternative meal wasn't caving, it was problem-solving like a pro. If she can't respect your choices, then yeah, she needs to back off. Grandma privileges don't come with a free pass to micromanage your parenting. Story 3. Am I the a-hole here for yelling at an elderly man? I, 18 female, work later in the morning at a fast food restaurant, and every morning we get a pretty good crowd of seniors. I just switched from nights to mornings, so I'm not very familiar with the regulars. There's this one old man who comes in often, according to my co-workers, and he has a problem with this one homeless guy who comes in a lot to buy coffee and something small to eat. While I was serving someone in the drive-thru, I could see the old man staring and giving dirty looks to the homeless man, and it was started to bother me, but I didn't know what to say. My manager asked me to do a coffee round because when she does it, the old man always complains about the homeless man being in the restaurant, and I'm pretty abrasive and can't stand when people are rude to others. When I reached his table, he didn't say anything about the homeless man, but he did give me a dirty look when I reached the homeless man and gave him a refill on his coffee. A few minutes later, the homeless man stood up and walked near the front to get more creamed sugar for his coffee. The old man came storming up and started yelling at him, saying, "Get out of here! You don't belong in here! You're here all the time and I'm sick of seeing you!" I slammed my hands on the counter and said, "That's enough. Just because you have different financial situations doesn't make you better than him. He's a paying customer and he's minding his own business. If you have a problem with him being here and keep giving him dirty looks or say one more rude thing, then you can get out because we don't tolerate harassment here." Then he said something about how I should respect old people and have better customer service skills, so I told him, "Respect is earned, not given." And then the old man sat down. When he finished his coffee, he said he was never coming back, so I said, "Okay, bye, have the day you deserve," and gave him a smile while waving. I understand I should have spoken to him nicer because 2 wrongs don't make a right, but I hate my job, and I'm sick of dealing with the disrespect that comes with working in fast food, especially from people who think I should respect them just because they're elderly. Plus, the day prior, I put in my 2 weeks' notice. So am I the a-hole for yelling at him? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. The elderly generation is ridiculously entitled. They need to be reminded that they're humans too from time to time. Also, your manager was probably banking on you telling that codger off. Not the a-hole, but the old man you told off is one though. Not the a-hole and good for you. Old dude was rude as fuff and probably gets away with it a lot because people are too scared to stand up to an old bully. Older doesn't always mean wiser. Not the a-hole. Customer service is a thankless job. And also, you're so right. It's exhausting seeing people harass others without consequence. You said your manager asked you to go over there because they didn't even want to deal with this person? And they knew you had an abrasive personality? Sounds like they wanted you to deal with him pretty much how you did. Or they knew that you had already put your 2 weeks in, so anything you said would have been a little consequence to your job. Not the a-hole. You said what a lot of people would want to say. Also, be proud that you didn't make it about the homeless man, but the old man being rude. You did the right thing. This entitled old man thinks he can degrade a paying customer, homeless or not. It's none of his effing business. And when he yelled at you about respecting old men, you were respecting the older homeless man, nothing the screaming a-hole. I hate boomers who think they are entitled to judge others. It disgusts me that these old farts don't give compassion and empathy to the poor, but expect compassion and empathy when they are in need. Story 4. Am I the a-hole for confronting my parents about constantly meddling in my life and decisions? I, 32 female, have always had a complicated relationship with my parents. They've never been shy about voicing their opinions, but ever since I got married and had my son, 4 male, it feels like they've taken it to a whole new level. They're constantly criticizing my decisions, from my career choices to how I handle my marriage and even how I raise my son. It's like they always think they know better and want me to follow their way of doing things. For context, I'm financially secure and in a loving, supportive relationship with my husband. We both work hard to provide a stable and happy life for our son, but my parents always find something to pick apart. They've made comments about how we run our household, how I discipline my son, and even how much time I spend with my husband versus my child. It's exhausting and feels like nothing I do is ever good enough for them. The breaking point came last weekend. My parents came over for a visit, and everything started off fine. But then, during dinner, they began criticizing my husband, saying he doesn't do enough around the house, which isn't true. He's an amazing partner. Then they shifted their focus to me, accusing me of neglecting my son because I recently started working longer hours on a big project at work. I finally snapped. I told them that their constant meddling and criticism were not only hurtful, but also unwelcome. I explained that I'm an adult and capable of making my own decisions, and that if they couldn't respect that, they'd need to take a step back from my life. The conversation got heated, with them accusing me of being ungrateful and saying they were just trying to help. My dad even said, "You wouldn't even be where you are without us," which felt like a slap in the face. Now, they're giving me the silent treatment, and some extended family members are saying I was too harsh and should have just let it go. Others think I was right to stand my ground. Meanwhile, my husband fully supports me and says I did the right thing by setting boundaries, but I can't help but feel guilty. Am I the a-hole here? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You did the right thing by setting boundaries with them, otherwise this will always go on like this. They need to respect the decisions you make, as you are a grown woman. You are right, this was the only option I had. I just had to set boundaries there. Constant involvement in my life, and always trying to make me do the things their way, was already affecting my family. I can make decisions on myself as I'm a grown woman. Good for you. Setting boundaries is hard, but it's definitely worth it when peoples are overstepping like that. I realize that setting boundaries is a must for everyone. Silent treatment is abuse. In this case, it's abuse, but also a silver lining. Let them give you the silent treatment. Think about how much stress-free it is with them silent, not the a-hole. They have to understand that they cannot get involved in every decision I make. I just had to set clear boundaries. I just could not take it anymore. You're not the a-hole here. Boundaries are important, not the a-hole. You are establishing boundaries with your parents, and they don't like it. Too bad for them. Do not apologize. You have done nothing wrong. How your household runs and how your son is raised is between you and your husband. No third-party commentary is needed, especially a negative one. It sounds like you and your husband are a solid team, so keep telling mom and dad to hush. I won't apologize for anything, as I didn't do anything wrong. I was just setting boundaries, which I should have set a long time ago. Me and my husband are a solid team and support each other in our decisions. I am sure your husband appreciates you standing up for your family. The only thing you did wrong was to let it go on so long. Invite them to be adults, not know-it-all, not the a-hole. What took you so long? It ticks me off when I'm told to let things go because family. Abusive behavior, especially by family, needs to be called out for what it is, so don't let other family manipulate you with guilt. Not the a-hole. The silent treatment sounds like a gift to me. Let them be silent for a good long while. My advice to you is, put them on a strict information diet. Do not discuss anything but very minor things about your life with them. An example would be you deciding to work longer hours. They would not know this if you didn't tell them. It will be much harder for them to pick apart your life if they know nothing about it except vague details. Do not invite them to your home anymore, ever. If they can't be good guests, then they shouldn't ever be guests. If they ask why, tell them why. Restrict your visits to them and be prepared to leave if they start making rude comments. If they ask why, tell them why. Think of this as training them to stop being so intrusive in your life. You are an adult, a wife, and a mother. At this point, you need to severely restrict their ability to do you emotional damage. If their time with you and their grandchild shrinks substantially, this will help train them. Be strong. You can do this.
Thank you for listening. If you like the video, consider like and subscribe. If you want more stories like these, turn on your notification to receive the latest stories.